Thank you all so much for being here. If you didn't know where you were, this is the I Love NY Seed panel, part of New York City Tech Week. Super excited to be here with all of you. Thank you for coming on a Friday afternoon. I know it's been an intense week for Tech Week, and I know you've had a lot of events. But the good news is that after this is a happy hour, so that's a nice cold beers are waiting for you in 45 minutes' time. So thank you for being here. My name is Carl Fudge. If you don't know me, I run a company called Presentation Mode. We are a narrative strategy and design firm. We've helped founders raise over $1 billion of capital with strategic storytelling. And I'm really excited to be joined here by these two amazing investors. Before I do their intros, though, I just want to say a big thank you to BrainStation. So BrainStation is our venue partner. They're the ones who kindly sponsored the space today. It's an amazing community of AI and digital classes. And so if you're not familiar with BrainStation, please check them out. Cool. So we've got some amazing investors here who are both individually and institutionally involved in some of the top seed stage venture investing in New York City. Let's start with some introductions. And first of all, Kathryn. So Kathryn Weinmann is a principal at FirstMark Capital, where she invests at the seed and Series A stages with a focus on consumer health, wealth, and happiness, a thesis that she's been building and publishing publicly for several years. Her current areas of conviction include chronic condition management, AI companions for health, the downstream effects of GLP-1s, AI native care delivery, and brain health. So if you're raising any of these areas, you might want to talk to Kathryn. FirstMark's portfolio companies in this space include Row and Function Health, and she's one of the more vocal and original thinkers writing about where consumer health is headed. Before FirstMark, Kathryn was a VP at Norwest Venture Partners and worked in business operations at NerdWallet. She has a BA from Vanderbilt and an MBA from Stanford. So welcome, Kathryn.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. And next to me, we can clap. Yeah, we can clap for Kathryn. Woo! Love that.
I expect no applause.
I'll clap for you. And then next to me is Will McKelvey. Will McKelvey is a principal at Lerer Hippeau, one of New York's most active and well-regarded early-stage funds. He leads pre-seed and seed investments and has backed companies like Augmodo, P1 AI, Little Snack, Lava, and Altitude, among others. Before venture, Will spent nearly 5 years on Capitol Hill as a senior policy advisor to Congressman Ro Khanna, I should say, which gives him a unique perspective as an investor. He's from Dayton, Ohio, a graduate of the Ohio State University, right? You have to say the. I'm not sure why, you can tell me later. He has an MBA from Berkeley Haas, where he co-founded Courtyard Ventures, a student-run seed fund focused on the Berkeley ecosystem. And when he's not writing checks, he's on the basketball court or hosting block parties. So are we all going to get an invite to the next block party?
This Sunday, 3 p.m. on Cornelia Street in West Village. Wow,
that worked out better than I thought. Nice. So before we dive into the questions, I just want to get Will. What a nice, friendly, supportive group. This is amazing. No one clap for me if that's okay. I want to just get a quick show of hands. So who here in this room is a founder right now? Okay.
Oh, I love it.
Holy. Who here is not a founder? That's a couple. Okay. Of the founders, I want to know who is seed and earlier? Seed and earlier? Okay. Anyone A and later? Okay. Anyone actively fundraising right now? Okay, so we've got a bunch of pre-seed founders who are actively fundraising. That's perfect. So we've got the right people in the room to help you navigate the seed and pre-seed investing arena in New York City. And that's these guys. And so the first question is, give us your hot take on the state of the union when it comes to New York City's seed stage investment environment right now. Kathryn, maybe we can start with you.
Well, I think first of all, super happy to be here. Thanks so much for coming. I think there's a bit of a paradox maybe going on within early stage investing. I don't know if it's unique to New York or not, probably not, but it's a time where you actually probably need less money than you ever did to build the same thing, and yet people are raising more. And obviously there are a lot of factors at play for that, but I think it creates an interesting tension for founders to decide how much money to raise. And so the thing that I often help founders think through as they're deciding when to raise and how much to raise is trying to triangulate both, obviously, what do you need for the certain milestones that will hit you for the next round, but then also what type of dilution is implied by the amount that you raise and the associated valuation. And in many cases, folks anchor really heavily on the dilution, but don't think always about those milestones. And the other kind of maybe hot take component, I don't know if this is hot or not, but the next round milestones, particularly for the A, where I spend most of my time, has really gone up unless you're in these categories that are du jour, and you can't really count on that. And I spend a lot of time in consumer health, as you know, and that's a category where real traction is often, that bar has really gone up. And so balancing the tension of how much to raise given kind of where we are in a market cycle and in your category is something that I love to think through. So I guess my advice would just be to probably bias toward raising a little bit more just to ensure you have the cushion to get to wherever that moving target of that bar is when you need to raise the next round.
All right, that's great. And my take is that wanting to raise venture capital is actually not who I want to talk to. The most interesting and the people who are going to get the richest, who are starting companies right now, are likely not going to raise venture, or at least they're going to do it really begrudgingly. Because if you think about some of the most successful outcomes in the history of venture, it's almost always at the intersection of someone who's very high intellect doing something that's relatively low status, and raising venture itself has become a high status pursuit. And so because of that, it started to self-select away into a more hyper-competitive group of people who are following the crowd. And I say this as someone who only backs people who definitionally want to raise venture. So it's a bit of a paradox, and I understand this doesn't really make sense. But I think about Sam Altman starting a nonprofit in 2015, or I think about Palmer Luckey starting a defense contractor in 2017, or I think about even Alexis Ohanian dropping out of UVA to start a social network in 2005. These were things that were not high status. Not just were they an asymmetric bet, but there was a thing that the people looked at them and said, you have so much potential, why are you doing this? And raising venture itself has become something that is oh, you raised the $3 million seed round, congratulations, you have done something. You actually haven't done anything. And I think that the barrier to do stuff is so low now with the tools that are available that I think and the reason the bar has gone up for Series A is because you can do so much more with so much less. So I think any founder, when you think about starting a company, your question should not be, how can I go raise money? The question is going to be, how can I go make money? And then the capital will follow. And then, they say that venture capital is 99% saying no and 1% begging. You want the VCs begging. You don't want to be doing the asking.
Kathryn, can we come back to you talking about how much to raise? Because there's two sides of that, right? On the one hand, how much you raise is a signal of your ambition in many ways, right? And so some people think they need to raise a big number. And in some ways, that's an advantage, right? If you have more resources, you can out-hire the competition, you can move more quickly. On the other hand, nobody wants to be raising for a long time. No one wants to have an undersubscribed round. And so there's different schools of thought in terms of be really bold and ambitious, ask for a big number, or be a bit more conservative and try and have an oversubscribed round. So given that you brought this up, what's your thoughts on how high people should aim when they're looking to go and raise venture capital?
Yeah, I think my first and foremost point is that how much you raise should be first and foremost tied to the needs of your business. We're not, especially at the early stages where you're not at the point of making the argument around building some war chest, this capital should be really tied to specific milestones. And the tighter you can make the specificity on those milestones, the faster you can build credibility with the investment community. Most investors that you meet with will meet with you at least a round before you're within their buy box. And oftentimes, as a part of that conversation, folks will tell me what they're going to do. And I know the world changes, and I know there's learnings and pivots along the way, and all that's fine. But I cannot tell you how empowering it is for a founder to come back to me and being like, hey, I not only did the thing I said I was going to do, but I did a little bit more or some other thing. And I did it with the same or less money that I had planned. It signals that you know your business, which irrespective of the fundraising game, is the most important thing. And so beyond that, I would say generally raise enough to buy yourself, 18 months or the next round plus some, and then back into kind of what kind of valuation and dilution does that imply. Look at the competitive market. And if you, for whatever reason, are in a market where everyone's raising massive pre-seed and seed rounds, maybe that does change the dynamic of what it takes to compete over those next 18 months. But more often than not, folks will try to pick a number that sounds big just to get into a certain investor's check size. Cannot tell you how many times people are like, oh, we're raising $1.5 million, and I'm like, great, but that's really excited for you, but that's a little small for us, but let's stay in touch. And they're like, well, we could raise more. What's your minimum check size? And that conversation starts to get, I think, off center of what the needs of the business are. It's fine to do that on the margin. But anyway, so that's kind of how I generally think about it, but focus on the needs of your business and then find the investors for the check sizes match that.
Let's talk about New York City. So all three of us have roots in the Bay Area. So Kathryn, you were there for about a decade, right? I lived in San Francisco for 10 years myself. Will, you went to UC Berkeley. So now we're all in New York City. So I said to you guys, is that because New York City is now better than Silicon Valley? And you're like, no, absolutely not. But let's talk about New York City. Let's talk about what companies do thrive here. Are there certain sectors or certain categories that are especially suited for this city in particular?
You want to go first?
Go ahead, Will.
I mean, I think, I don't want to preempt any other thoughts on this panel, but I don't think anything is special or specific to New York. You can find counterexamples of like every interesting category where there was a winner built in SF, where you think that would be a New York category, or vice versa. I mean, the biggest consumer company built in the last, maybe ever, was built in San Francisco in the last few years. Was OpenAI. The biggest outcome ever in New York history was an infra company called Datadog. MongoDB was built here. Modal just raised a $3 billion valuation. Lava is crushing on the model routing side. There's really, I don't think it matters where exactly you are. What matters is, do you have the ability to attract the right talent? And in this day and age, if you can't convince a great engineer or a great product person to move to New York City, I don't know what you're doing wrong, because this is the greatest place in the world.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'll say is people want to live here. I mean, there's obviously a ton of cities that you might want to live in, but there is such a wide umbrella of types of people that you might want to recruit to your company, sell to, partner with, that want to be in New York, and if not live in New York, spend a lot of time in New York. Mm-hmm. And so I travel actually a lot less than I used to when I was living in the Bay Area, because people come to me. I mean, people come to New York all the time. And from Europe, from across the US, from other countries, it's really remarkable. And so I will say there are some categories that are particularly well suited for New York. Again, they theoretically could be built anywhere, but legacy industries, like I said, a lot of time in healthcare, and the partners are here. The wide variety of patient population are here. And so it's just a really special place to build for a ton of reasons, but I don't think that has to be at the exclusion of there being other great places to build.
How much do you guys care about location? I talked to a founder the other day, and he's in Israel, building a great company, and the feedback he got from investors was, unless you move to Silicon Valley, we're not really going to invest in you. So how much does it really matter to be in one of these big hubs or be in Silicon Valley? How much do you guys look at that?
That sounds like it was spoken by a Silicon Valley investor.
It does sound like that.
That wasn't us saying it, let me tell you. Yeah, I would say, we invest in companies in all over the world. And one thing that New York is particularly good at is being an entryway to the US from Europe, from Israel, from a bunch of places. And so that doesn't actually mean that we need the company to move to the US, maybe with the exception of like a highly regulated industry like healthcare, where if you're going to build for US, it's helpful to be here. But we do have a strong preference for in-person teams centrally located. Again, there are exceptions to that. There are reasons why you may make different choices for your business, and certainly don't build your business based on my advice, but it is what I am seeing very directly correlated with the best outcomes, especially as the world is moving super quickly and the pace of change has never been this fast. Teams that are in person together 5 days a week, or more in some cases, tend to outperform.
Totally agree. Be in person. I think where you build matters less than the community you reside in, because of the nature of the world between intercontinental flight and group chats. And honestly, group chats are probably more important than taking flights in terms of being as close to the metal as possible as things move incredibly quickly. So if you are going to build your company in Austin, Texas, or in Columbus, Ohio, or Detroit, Michigan, it's most important to know that you are tapped into the way things are moving in the market more broadly. Where I see companies struggle that are building outside of New York City and building outside of SF is that they fall behind the state of the art. And so, I think that's a totally annoying, arrogant move by that investor, and fuck them. I'm sorry. I think my two best companies, one, the CEO is based in Las Vegas, and the other, the CEO is based in Seattle. And so it would be so silly to think that you can only build great companies in one place, and then their counterfactuals are numerous. But just make sure that you are intellectually plugged into the beating heart of technology and where things are going. As long as you have that covered, you'll be okay.
That's awesome. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go to some rapid-fire true or false questions. So ideally answer with true or false, but if you want to elaborate, you can. At Seed, all that matters is the founder. True, false?
True.
Yeah, true.
Okay.
At Series A, Series B, and Series C, all that matters is the founder as well. You are the independent variable in this company, and everything else is downstream of that.
Anything to add, Kathryn?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's nuance to other things as you grow a company, but yes, I mean, fundamentally, if you don't have that element, it all will fall apart anyway.
True, false. Every VC-backed company needs an AI story in 2026.
Again, there's some nuance, but honestly true. Like, if not that your company has to be an AI company per se, whatever that might mean, but if you are not aware of how AI is shifting and impacting your industry, then you're missing the biggest mega trend of our generation. So it doesn't mean you have to always sell every component of your business around an AI narrative, but yes, you have to.
Have you seen
that's longer than a yes or no.
No, that's a great answer. Have you seen any companies that are sort of not really AI companies, but they're trying to position themselves as an AI company? And do you guys see through that?
Yeah, it's every single company that says, oh, but we have a chatbot and we've given it a human name. And it's like, that doesn't mean you have an AI company. That means that you are out of ideas.
Do you have a take on the need an AI story, true, false?
I mean, of course you do. I mean, the thing is, and it's like, the AI story is like, it's in 2010, you could have gone back to like a big VC's website and they would have like this is our healthcare practice and this is our cloud practice. And now those like subheads look hilarious because every company is a cloud company, and like AI is the same way. And I think what Kathryn's saying is the way you construct your company is different now too. Like, think about the way you hire and the way you build information capture internally. Like, companies that are highly text-based will do much, in terms of like the way they communicate with each other, will do much better than those who are still operating sort of like multimodally and missing a lot of context. That's important to continuing to automate the company as you grow.
True, false. All startups need a contrarian insight. A contrarian insight might be. Most people think X, but we think Y, and that's why we're right. So does every startup have to have that contrarian insight well stated as a thesis?
For some level of outperformance, yeah. I mean, just sort of inherently, if you are not having any contrarian insight, you're not going to have a power law outcome. Because either it won't be, you can have a successful business, but it won't be a venture power law outcome.
Yeah, I think it's less of a contrarian insight and more about something that you can do that others cannot. And then sometimes it's like, yes, everyone is trying to build name X commodity idea, but we have the access to like the greatest distribution channels ever, and so this is why we're going to win in this category. And so like, that can be a form of contrarianism. That's something no one else has, but like there's something you have to be special.
True, false. I spend less than 2 minutes reading any pitch deck that comes into my inbox.
Nearly.
True.
Less than 1 minute? How long?
The pitch deck gives me like a very high level overview, but what's most important, and we'll talk about this later, is like how you got to me. I think that's actually much more the signal than like whatever like lovely font you used, even though we love Carl's lovely fonts.
I do a lot more than that, thank you very much.
I will also say 2 minutes is plenty of time to say yes, too. Like,
totally.
It's not just so we can move on.
I mean, building on this, Will, I won't consider a startup unless the founder comes from a warm referral. True, false?
That's not 100% true, but I think that you are always, especially as a seed investor, where there's like functionally no data. There's like very little revenue. There's a whisper of a product. Like the thing that we have to capture all this like really amorphous data that's like hard to quantify, and even how you got in front of me is like a really important piece of data. I mean, how quickly you respond to my emails is this piece of data. Like, this is all stupid and arbitrary, but it's like it's what you have to grasp at when there is nothing. And so, yeah, like in a world in which like you're going to have to go sell to enterprise customers and you need to get in front of Coca-Cola, I hope that you have like the juice to find the right person who can introduce you and walk you into like the VP of Revenue's door. In the same way, I hope you can find the juice in my like super prolific like LinkedIn posting and like super like promiscuous LinkedIn accepting that we have some mutual friend who can like walk you in and say, I think really highly of this person, you should take a meeting. That gets me so much more excited than just a pitch deck over the transom.
Kathryn?
Yeah, generally agree. I'll double click on the responsiveness point. It's perhaps unfair, but like when in a world of limited signals, that's a really powerful one. So I would definitely pay attention to that. The only caveat I'll say is I do a lot of proactive outreach too, through people I trust, to founders, asking for introductions. So in the same way that if I randomly cold email you and either you're not familiar with my firm or you haven't met me before, you may or may not make the time to have the conversation. But if it comes to you through someone you trust or respect, admire in some way, you're more likely to take it too. So some of this is just human nature.
All right, I'll let you guys breathe and we'll slow down the pace, but thank you so much. Yeah, they did well. They did well. These guys are athletes.
I think we're agreeing too much though, Carl. Can you make us be more feisty up
Not
here.
to worry.
Yeah, that's coming. The spicy text section is coming. In a very pretty font on the website of Lerer Hippeau that we did design, I've noticed that it says, finding founders before they're famous. So Will, think about an investment you've made recently. What was it about that founder that stood out to you?
I really liked the alliteration. So I made an investment in a not yet disclosed company, so I'm going to speak a little bit high level, but this is a founder who, when I met her, she had no co-founder, she had no deck, she had a semblance of an idea that is not what the company is today, and who I knew at the time, what I knew at the time was not going to be the idea that eventually came to market. And I knew from the moment I met her that I had to work with her. She was incredibly high energy. She was so sharp. She had validation. She had been introduced to us through one of our portfolio founders who had known her from her prior place of work and said, this was one of the best people I worked with. And so all those signals, immediately I was excited to like come in and take the meeting. And the way that she was able to just express this like clear vision and this energy and this like obvious, like you want someone who like in retrospect their success was inevitable and you can project that now. And I always look for new like forms of the way people talk about people as signal, and sometimes there'll be like these emergent phrases that then become like overwrought and like annoying. And so like this is an example like cracked. Like now cracked means nothing. But like this, but the new one that I'm interested in is a reality distortion field. If you have the ability to bend the world to your desires, like that is something that gets me really excited. So when someone said, "Oh yes, Allie has a reality distortion field around her," that got me incredibly excited. And it was nothing about the idea. It was a category I was interested in, but like the idea was so far from solidified. But it was like she was someone I knew would be inevitable. And so when you're meeting with an investor, exude that. And I know we all have different styles, but like you want the investor to walk out of the meeting being like, I have to work with you.
Yeah, it's a fine line. I have trouble with the phrase reality distortion field for this reason. So often people conflate that with they are delusional, and those are two different things. Being able to bend the world to your will shows a level of conviction and force, of ability to exert force on the world that is wonderful and worth backing. But someone who does not have a clear view of reality they can make some short-term sales. They might even raise a bunch of money, but we've seen time and again how that tends to, like reality tends to come back and slap them in the face, usually with equal and opposite force. And so I really like when people can bend the world to their will and create a reality distortion field in that they are changing reality, but it's not at all in conflict with having a super clear view of where the world is.
I just had outreach from somebody who was a big part of the Theranos story, speaking of reality distortion. So maybe it's a good thing, but maybe there's too much of a good thing at a certain point. Kathryn, let's talk about the idea of raising VC and how some people are very focused, aren't they, on raising from a big name fund. And Andreessen Horowitz says Sequoia, FirstMark, Lerer. So some people are really chasing that big brand name. But is that wrong? Should they be more focused on trying to find the individuals, the Kathryns and the Wills of the world, more than the brand name at the front of the door? How should they think about that?
A little hard for me to say no to that one. But I mean, generally speaking, I do think brand does matter to a degree, but it's what that brand really is. The value of the specific partner that you're working with does go beyond the brand of perhaps that firm, especially in a world where we have tons of great emerging managers that have way more experience than a young mid-level person at a mega fund. And so really focusing on what type of partnership you're signing up for and how they can support you. And how they can support you, obviously all the obvious ways that I'm sure you guys are asking about all the time. But a big one is about what type of signal and introductions can they make for your next round, especially when you guys are very early stage. Their relationships, their connective tissue is half of the open doors that you'll have for the next round. So there's a huge amount of signal in who you've raised from, but it can be at the individual investor level as much, if not more, than at the firm level, at least in the what gets me excited.
I agree with that to an extent, but I will say there is something to be said for the mid-level person whose success is entirely tied to your success. Someone who's been investing for 10, 12, 15 years has dozens and dozens of portfolio companies, and likely they've been doing this for 10, 12, 15 years because they've been successful, which has allowed them to continue to do the job. And so because of that, there's a bit of a sort of incentive misalignment where they're now like, okay, cool, this would be great if you were successful, and I would like that to happen. But as soon as it becomes clear that that's not the case, that's okay. I have already made my money, and like there are other things I can spend my time on. For someone like Kathryn and I, like we are not making partner without you becoming $1 billion company, and so we are totally incentivized to do everything that we can to get you to that place. And like maybe it means that we are going to have to go bang down the door with you, even if it's not a place where we already have our own connections. But like we will be in the trenches because we cannot be successful without your success.
I want to talk about this word partnership, Kathryn, because I think many people when they're raising venture capital, it's about trying to get that money in the door, and it's almost like, great, I've got my money and now I can go and do my thing. But really, it is a long-term partnership, right? And how should these guys out here looking to raise for their seed stage companies think about the best ways to leverage and build a partnership with you? Like, how best can you be put to work to help these guys achieve these billion-dollar outcomes?
Totally. There are a bunch of different ways that an investor can be helpful, and generally it will completely depend on who they are and what you need. I mean, people are people, but the high level buckets that you should think about, a big one is talent. You know, we spend a bunch of time, and that can be geo-specific. Like our deepest talent networks are in New York. No surprise, because we're all here. A lot of our portfolios here, all of that. So think about kind of the talent networks that individual partner or firm are allowing you to tap into. Another big one is you guys will know your business and should know your business better than we will ever. But we can help at the market layer, whether it's thoughts on competitors, whether it's industry connections that we have, so that kind of market level conversation can be really good. And then the third is really hugely important, and sometimes gets written off until you really need it, is psychological. It's definitely the person that you should call when things aren't going well. And it can be very lonely to be a founder, and you really shouldn't be complaining to your team about those things. And so having someone that you can call who's helped other founders through very similar patterns, that you trust, that you can actually be honest with and bring problems to early, that should absolutely be a part of your filter criteria.
It feels quite evaluative, and it's quite demoralizing for founders who are raising and get like a no and a no and a no and a no. And it can almost feel like an interview process where you're just trying to get damn yes from somebody, but really it should be more of a mutual evaluation, right? So what should the founders be asking you guys? What's a smart question they should be asking you guys in the course of these conversations through the pitch process? Maybe Will, you could jump in.
I think you should just try to get at how the investor does work with founders. Like, what is their style? I think some people are, very in the weeds. They want to understand every part of your business, and maybe that's what you want. And some people want an investor who is going to be a cheerleader and who's going to be there when things suck, but is not going to sort of spend time being like, hey, how's your CAC doing today? And so I think really don't be afraid to ask that. And to me, when you ask that, I'm like, oh, this person has a sense of what they want and is not just hunting for capital aimlessly.
The caveat to that, though, is sometimes, and I think everybody's well-meaning, it can come off as combative. Some people will come into the meeting, and of course it's about both getting to know each other. And I want people to ask questions, but sometimes people will come in and they'll be like, before we get started, I have a few questions. And just the attitude completely shifts. And it's not that those aren't perfectly appropriate questions. It's just important to weave them in a way that is natural and builds relationship. Because remember, as much as you're both evaluating each other, it's in both ways a sales conversation. And so you keep that in mind in terms of how and when you weave those questions in.
And I will say, to fundraising sucking, fundraising does suck. And know that actually a lot of investors, maybe not folks who've not led a fund, is that VCs have to go fundraise from their LPs and get told a bunch of no's from people who don't know shit about anything. And so we feel you, and we know it's a slog. But sales is also a slog, and hiring is also a slog. By signing up to be a founder, you are willingly choosing to do something that will not be fun all the time. And so don't feel bad about it. It's you're gonna get no's. You're gonna get no's every stage. We've all got no's, and resilience is probably the most important trait of everything we've talked about.
Take us through your process, and those 2 minutes, a pitch deck comes into your inbox, and you've got these supercomputer brains that are rapid pattern recognizers, right? So what are you looking for? What are the green lights? What are the red lights? Help us understand that thought process as you go through somebody's deck.
Claude, why this big? Just kidding.
Why is this big?
Yeah, no, just kidding. But it's I think the thing I'm looking for is okay, one, your first slide should always be the team slide, because again, back to the matter, the question is on you. I want to understand who you are, and then it should be help me understand the problem that you see. Why is this interesting? Why is this not been fixed yet? The why now is a critical one. And then the solution I actually index less on that. Frankly, at the stage that we invest, like your product will be different in 6 months, and it'll look different again in 12 months. And if it doesn't, we've done something horribly wrong. And so, like, I'm more interested in like how deeply you've understood the market you're tackling and who you are.
Yeah, I think it's highly varied how the story should be told based on the stage of the business. Seeing companies from essentially seed through C is where I kind of tend to see pitch decks. And the earlier stage you are, the more it does need to focus on the team. I like when people actually start with the vision because it's where we are now is usually a little underwhelming because it's a little bit of progress towards a big goal. But when you bury that into, but wait, we're actually going to be much bigger than that first thing I told you we're doing. I think you sometimes miss the opportunity to have it really land of like, hey, this is what the world's going to look like, and here's how we're going to get there. Maybe put that right after the team slide.
I'm going to open up for audience questions in a minute, so feel free to get your in a second. But good, very good. You'll be the first one. No, most enthusiastic. That's excellent. So get your brains going. What's a red flag though? What's something that'll make you click the X button, shut your laptop, delete the email? Like, what's something that is a massive faux pas that is an instant no?
I don't know about this. Is like shut the laptop. We're done.
Well, okay, I was exaggerating. Sorry.
But some level of like orange flag might be over reliance on like throwing a bunch of names that are like very loosely connected to the company. So sort of like pseudo advisory. I had one conversation with them folks because it feels like you're like desperate for credibility when really it doesn't really add credibility to the business unless they're actually doing something for you or connected with the company in some way. And then the other is counter positioning against a competitor is a double-edged sword, like can be both really effective, but also can seem like you're player number two if you're constantly being like, if your whole position is we're not those guys. I think sometimes that is an orange flag.
Negative campaigning, just like in politics.
Yeah, exactly, just like politics. I think it's honesty. Like it's funny that this comes up in references. This comes up when we're going through the process and we're talking to each other about where you are from a customer traction perspective. Like anytime, if I get a reference, it's like, oh, this person was kind of hard to work with because they were like hard nosed and like not always the friendliest. That's not always like a negative reference. If I get a reference, it's like, oh, this person was like unethical or dishonest. Like that is an automatic no. And so the same thing. This was one time I looked at a company that was very high flying and raising a very large round, and they had a customer case study on their deck, and it's a customer who I knew very well. So I just called some of their team and said, hey, you're using this product. Like, what do you think? They're like, oh, we tinkered with like a week and then churned. And I'm like, this was a case study. And it's like, if you're lying about a case study on your deck, like the most verifiable thing of all time, it's like a well-known company in New York, what else would you be dishonest about? So just always like keep it above the belt, please.
Sorry, last one that just thought of. Don't play with your revenue numbers. People like, we will get through that, but like I've seen fully activated ARR, CAR framed as R, run rate revenue framed as ARR. I mean, gross revenue versus net revenue, people try to get cute with. It will be much it will be a short-term win and a long-term loss if you play games with that.
All right, so Will has a call in 6 minutes time, so we're going to power through some Q&A. Over here, please. What was your question?
Thank you, Kathryn. You're in the same alignment. So my question is, what do you prefer, both of you? More conservative deck or more bold deck? Not playing with numbers.
Yeah,
Conservative or bold was the question in terms of the deck and positioning.
There are certain levels of growth that will get investors excited. And obviously, like we could talk about what those would be based on your category and stage. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having a bold forecast. Even that requires some, we'll see how we'll get there fully, especially at the stages that we're talking about. Just be transparent about what the underlying assumptions are. And yeah, and the quality of those assumptions. Obviously, I've seen seed companies give me like a 7-year forecast. And I'm like, well, that is, remarkable.
I'm just going to power through as many as we can. So
Sure.
maybe one of you answer. And I think your hand was up. Do you still have a question?
So just double clicking on getting to the person more than the product. What are some ways that you stage the environment or create an environment to really bring out the best or set people up for success? And maybe what are some things that you guys want to do better where you might be missing out on some of those companies that have gone really big?
I think just gotta, like the way I think about like a conversation with the founder is like I let them drive. Like it's like I want you to tell your story the way you want to tell it, and then we'll go from there. Rather than being like, you've sent me a deck and I now have 10 questions. Like, talk to me about how you got here in terms of life. Talk to me about why you're doing this and why you want to build a company at all. And then we'll get into like the details of the company rather than just come in ready to pepper you on like the nuances of your business model that will change in 4 months.
Shami?
Hi.
Turn your mic on for us. Make sure it's green.
Hi. My question is about the 2-minute scan of the pitch deck. What exactly are the both of you looking for when you scan it so quickly?
I'm not, I guess the pitch deck doesn't really matter that much. Like it has to like look okay, but again, like it really matters more about like what I know about you as a person. And oftentimes it means that like you've had someone who's like a close advisor who knows me. It's like, yes, this person is exceptional. I don't give a fuck what the pitch deck looks at that point. I'm not excited to talk to you because this person I trust says you're exceptional.
Shorter is better for those kind of cold pitch decks.
Well, a gentleman with the blue shirt here. Can we get the mic over there, please? I've been told to stay on the stage.
You can just holler.
It's got a mic on it for the recorder as well.
Thank you. So how about meeting somebody at an event or at a conference? Warm signal, cold signal, does that convert at all? Have you ever backed anybody who you met at a conference?
I haven't backed anybody that I've met at a conference, but not because of some sort of negative signal of meeting them at conferences. I will say I don't think in many categories the best founders are spending tons of time at conferences. I mean, unless they're there for a particular reason. Like there's a little bit of why are you here? Not to say that there's never a good reason.
What should they be doing instead? Just coding? What should they be
building?
Wait, so what if it's already built?
Then you should be selling. You should be selling. Selling.
Selling.
Yeah.
And sometimes being at conferences can help you sell, can help you hire, can help you build. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Gentleman here with the black hat.
Yes, name is Noah Phoenix. Again, I know you answered this, but what really captures you the most, the deck or the vision of what the founder is selling? Because I spoke to a founder and he got his deal signed without a deck. He was like, "Oh, I don't do decks. I just go out there and talk to people." And he actually got funded without a deck at all.
I would be perfectly fine with that.
Yeah, I've done that before.
Deck optional. All right, a gentleman in the back. Just give us a second to get the mic back to you.
So thanks for the wonderful session. And just a quick question. From the founder's perspective, these events, we see it as an opportunity to network with fellow founders and also investors. And I totally understand where you guys are coming from. Warm intros are, trust, a trust mechanism for you guys. But so is this a waste of time for founders to come to these events and try to approach you guys? And do you guys then perceive it as a cold reach? And should we probably then refrain from doing that?
Largely, yes. Sorry.
I don't think I'm quite that negative on it. But I think if you're impressive in person and you can make a positive impression, you can do that cold or otherwise. I meet people all over. I think the hypier the investor, no offense, like the more you're going to be like anchored on signal from others. If I believe in my own ability to assess your business, I should be able to do that if I meet you on the street.
Sure. Thank you.
Let's take one more. Look at these two. Look at these two. Let's take one more. Maybe somebody we haven't heard from yet to wrap us up. There's a lady here on the front row here.
Is there any founder that has, blown up later that you guys passed up on that you regrets? And what is it that when you look back, you kind of feel like you missed out on when they pitched you?
Shameful to admit, but we were not doing a lot of seed investing at the time at Norwest, but I passed on the seed and whatnot. And Grant from the start was like extremely clear in his vision for the business. The reason I passed is it was a super young company and we're a $3 billion fund at Norwest. So it was not where we were spending a lot of time, and live commerce hadn't launched yet. So, that was the reason for the pass. So it was like theoretically defensible, but obviously wish I were in it.
Yeah, for me, it was like, it was why I have this so founder-oriented mindset now. I spent a bunch of time with the founder of Profound before he even had his idea, and I thought he was exceptional, and I just was waiting for him to figure something out, and I waited too long, and I lost my chance. And it's like when you have someone that you really believe in, just go into business with them and figure out the rest later.
This has been awesome. We're going to transition to happy hour, so I hope you'll join us for a nice cold beverage outside and a snack. But before we do that, I just want to say a big, big, big thank you to the two of you. Will and Kathryn have been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.